An Unyielding Desire, written by Robert Fay, read to you by Evan Schmidt. When the plane took off, Jason turned around to face Beria and met her with stunning and inviting smile. He felt tense around her, and this he had felt the moment he had picked her up 2 nights back from the airport when she had come in from the States. Marissa had been working and was in a meeting. Jason, who had just then come out of the construction firm where he worked, looked down at the traffic flow when his cell phone rang. Marissa was all right, and he was happy she would be in his arms in just a few more hours. "Hey baby, guess what?" she had said. "Hey baby, what's going on?" he asked, his heart melting at the charming American way she calls him. "Please, would you pick Beria up from the airport? I'm kind of trapped here at the firm, and her flight is coming in at 6 p.m. "Your daughter is coming in tonight?" he had asked, surprised she had forgotten to put this pending visit from her American daughter in the picture. "Yes, didn't I tell you about a month ago? Beria will be vacationing with us for about a month," Marissa said, knowing that Jason was an officious man and would not turn down an opportunity to help. "Sorry, darling, it must have escaped my memory," he responded, knowing full well she must have forgotten to tell him that. It was very much like Marissa to forget to inform him and claim she had done so. She sometimes had this oblique aspect to her character that, strangely, was very attractive to Jason. How he loved her meretricious attitude sometimes beat his imagination. "You seem to have forgotten you would be flying to the States in the next 2 days, he asked. "What difference does it make, baby? Please don't let us fight over something as trivial as that. Are you her stepfather? Are you going out of town or something?" she asked in a calm and gentle manner that only she could muster, which quelled his desire for an argument. She could easily command his obedience, having him begging at her feet to be loved. "No, darling, please, don't worry about it. I was just wondering," he said, knowing he was also very untrue. Marissa knew it, even though it did not disturb her, and she was not going to be sentimental about it. "Okay, babe, I gotta go," she had responded, and the cell phone he still held to his ear had gone silent. Jason was shocked at how beautiful she was when he picked her up at the airport about an hour later. His behavior was evident to Beria that he found her attractive. As she brought her bags to the gate, she looked up and saw the tall, dark, handsome man who held a placard with her name written on it, looking down at her. He towered over those around him. He smiled and lumbered towards her with a lustful look in his eyes that naturally made her suspicious. He had not known how much beauty she had until they had met. The intense eyes that looked non-stop, as if assessing to understand, and then the warm, beautiful smile that made his heart jolt in alarm. She had such incredible beauty. She had this languid look in her eyes that made him immediately see some similarities between her and Marissa. "So what are you doing tonight?" he had asked, meeting my smile with his. When he turned to me, his mom's plane left. I was confused and had begun to speak when he interrupted me. "You need not worry then," he said. "That problem has been taken care of," as if reading my mind. "We would be going out tonight to experience the joys of our country." "That would be fabulous," I said, enjoying the way he had put it. He had a way with words that was very attractive. "So where would we be going?" I could not help asking. "To Booyah, and after that, to a nightclub in Limba. Then we would head back to Douala and retire for the evening." "You do not mean it, Jason," I exclaimed, my joy immeasurable. When we got home, he hurriedly drove out of the driveway after I got out of the car. "See you tonight, kitty," he said, waving as he left. I could not wait to go out with him, as he had promised, and I went to the effort of putting on makeup and a dress, yearning to be admired. My mother had a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Benanjo, in Douala, that she shared with Jason. When I arrived, I had eavesdropped on their conversation, and I heard her convince Jason it was proper that Jason move into a hotel until I had returned to the States. It was the correct thing to do, and I had heard Jason agree with Marissa, as if I did not know any better. Tonight, when Jason came to pick me up, he was not driving his usual Toyota Starlet. Instead, he had come with a service car, a Toyota Land Cruiser. I felt my heart surge with happiness, and I knew the night was going to be a memorable one. We reached the university city of Booyah at 8:30. We drove around OIC for a while before we could find a single parking spot. It was the weekend, and all the tycoons from Douala were visiting their girlfriends, so Jason said. We walked up to the bar arm in arm, father and daughter. The bar was full, but the bartender who approached bore an insincere smile. He informed us in perfect English that our table was ready. I could not help showing my surprise. I had phoned the restaurant for a reservation earlier when we left Douala, Jason explained. We would also be meeting some of my friends later on in the night. I wasn't expecting that, I said disappointedly. Don't worry, dear, he said. I'm only pulling your leg. True enough, there were no friends. I was possessive, as if I did not want to share my dear mother's husband with anyone tonight. The moment we sat down, Jason ordered a bottle of wine for us and asked me to order a soda to mix. I ordered a bottle of Sprite, and he thought a can of Coke would have been better. I politely disagreed, finding that Sprite and wine were a better mix. He nevertheless ordered a Coke. Country music was playing, and the tune was beautiful and soft. The neon lights illuminated Jason's features, making him look irresistibly handsome. Fear gripped my heart. It was going to be a night to remember, as I had thought. At first, we drank quietly, content to watch each other's faces in awe. The music lightened our hearts and eased our fears into oblivion. Then we began to chat excitedly, touching each other when the slightest opportunity occurred. I started to feel very comfortable with this strange man, a man I had, only days back, been introduced to as my stepfather. I had heard so much about him from my mother, but I never knew there lived a man who could be so handsome and beautiful at the same time. He smiled at me, as if he knew the secrets of my heart. Since Mom had left for the U.S., he was relaxed for the first time. I was hungry and told him so. He ordered a second plate of chicken and fries, and I devoured a whole chicken by myself. I was starving. I did not miss my mom at all. I believe she was already in L.A., relaxing in a jacuzzi. She was probably having fun, and I was confident. My mother was a woman with so much in her life. Dad, I have eaten my fill, I declared, pushing the plate away. He smiled gently and signaled to the waiter, who timidly walked over and carried away the remnants of our dinner, stealing glances at my father's handsome face. It did not surprise me. No woman in her right senses would miss such a cute face like the one that belonged to Jason. He was one of those men women read about, only in fairy tales, one of the most handsome men I had ever set my eyes on. Drop that dad stuff, Beria. Let's just be Beria and Jason, he said, jolting me out of my daydreaming. Can't we be just that? I could see his eyes pleading for me to say yes. It's okay with me? Friends? I said, stretching my hand to him. He took it warmly, and I felt the warm sensation run steadily towards my belly button, making me quiver. I lowered my eyes guiltily. He looked at me smiling, and then said, Are you okay? Sure, I responded, in false gusto, yet carried away by his magnetism. Then I pushed my chair back. Okay, Jason, shouldn't we be going now? So early? He asked, surprised. Off to Limba, buddy. I am kinda tired of this place. You never cease to amaze me. So it's me, though, Jason said, standing up and pulling my chair back for me to stand up. He held me by my waistline, and with the effect of the alcohol, I forgot he was my stepfather. Jason drove to Limba, his arm lying on my lap after I had repeatedly tried to push it away and received a sharp look at him. I could not bear to have his handsome face distorted with sadness. We immediately went to the black and white nightclub when we got to Limba. The crowds were unimaginable. The crowd was spilling out into the street. Nevertheless, we were prepared to enjoy ourselves no matter the odds. Jason ordered a beer, and I did the same. After having drunk only half of the glass, he pulled me to my feet, and we took to the dance floor. He held me in a tight embrace as our bodies swayed to the rhythm of the Caribbean beats, Satim Ta Kriye, probably Creole. I felt my body yearn with a desire I had never before thought existed. I knew our feelings were mutual because I could feel his groin press harder on mine, and the hard substance between his legs made my stomach quiver excitedly. I felt my legs turn into jelly, and before I could stop him, his mouth found mine. His kiss was hard, and my spine grew cold at the thought of what it was doing to me. Yet my body spoke of a different tongue. His kiss was a language that was full of desire. My body was hungry and thirsty at the same time. Hunger and a thirst that I knew had to be satisfied. We drove back to Douala in a drunken stupor. I am not sure how we arrived home without an accident. The moment we arrived in the living room, I saw Jason unbutton his shirt, and I did not wait to be requested to undress. As he pulled me onto the big couch, I could hear a distant voice warn me. This was my stepfather and my mother's husband. I knew I was doing a terrible thing to my mom, but how was I going to stop? My body was hungrier than I had ever thought was possible, and my whole being was on fire. I could feel him fill me, and I knew he was taking me to strange places I had never dreamt were possible. I knew this was something I could never have given up. "You forgot you are my daughter?" he asked, after he had got what he wanted. "I don't give a damn what you are," I said. I started to drift asleep. I felt him take me in his strong arms and carry me to my room, or so I thought. "Please don't dare leave me alone," I commanded. Jason gently laid me on the bed, laughing softly. As I got into a deeper sleep, I heard his footsteps recede. I was just too tired to care. I woke up the following day and discovered I was stark naked in my mother's bed. Memories of last night started to pour into my mind as reality dawned on me. What have I done? I asked myself, feeling the remorse sink in. I had stolen my mother's man, father, and mom's husband. What have I done? I kept on asking myself, tears running down my cheeks freely. My mind was in turmoil, and I wondered, what if? I was not able to bring myself in saying it aloud. What if I were pregnant? I whispered to myself. I could feel the tears rolling down my cheeks. What was I going to do? What was I going to say? I could not bear the thought of seeing Jason yet. I knew I would always be weak where he was concerned. I could not even think of blaming him. It was my fault entirely, not his. From the moment I was introduced to him, I had known that all that was in my mind was my desire for him. I could not wait for my mother to leave the country. I'd taken advantage of a lonely man when the opportunity presented itself. I was the wicked one and could not bear to see him, at least not just yet. Did he hate me for making him fall into temptation? I stayed in bed all that morning, then all that day, and all the while wishing that Jason would show up even, so that I could see his beautiful face. Then finally, when it seemed like he was not going to come at all, I began to worry that maybe he was hurt somewhere, wondering if he was okay. What must he be feeling now that it had been done? Marissa had worked as an accountant at Walmart for about 5 years before one of the company's junior staff sued her for sexual harassment. Her husband, an attorney, was devastated about this situation. He asked Brandon, his partner, to help fight the lawsuit. Brandon was his partner at the Travis and Brandon Associates, Travis's law firm, 15 years earlier. Brandon was all too eager to represent Marissa in court. It was a long and bitter fight, and even before the case was over, Travis had begun to suspect Marissa was having an affair. Speaking of betrayal, Brandon had shown an unnecessary enthusiasm to help Marissa. Travis could not stand such betrayal, so the two couples came to an amicable agreement to separate and go on their own paths. Marissa returned to her native Cameroon when she was offered a job at the American Eagle, an accounting firm. It managed the affairs of transatlantic shipping lines in Cameroon. But of course, she could not keep her mouth shut. At the slightest opportunity, she told every family member and friend her marriage had been a terrible mistake. The stories went back to Travis, who was still longing for his lost African wife, and they drove him crazy. Travis and Marissa had first encountered each other when he was a student of law at the George Washington Law School in D.C. He was assigned to the John A. Wilson building on Pennsylvania Avenue when he met the stunning African woman in her early 20s at the immigration office, seeking asylum. He had immediately fallen in love with her, and after taking her out to the Zanzibar nightclub at the waterfront that warm summer Friday night, they had returned to his student room that night. In the morning, he knew this was it. After several weeks of an inseparable romance, they had eventually gotten married, despite protestations from Travis's family, who lived in Miami. Berrio was their only daughter, and after the painful separation, she remained in the custody of Travis through high school. They now lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and Berria planned to attend the Johns Hopkins University Medical School on graduation from high school. Travis had been hesitant to let his only daughter go on vacation with his estranged wife to Cameroon after she graduated from high school. His only condition had been that she be of good behavior 6 months before that graduation. Berria had agreed. Plans for late-night parties were abandoned, and she did not get a single police ticket in all 2008. Travis was very proud of her achievements and felt obliged to keep his promise. When Berria arrived in Douala, Travis received a message from Marissa. She was going to a conference in Los Angeles for a week. Travis was mad. How could Marissa leave their daughter alone? She was only 18. He protested over the phone to Marissa. She responded that Berrio was old enough to take care of herself. However, Travis couldn't disagree more. Nevertheless, he could do nothing, since it seemed Marissa had already made up her mind. Travis decided to talk to Berria. As soon as he heard her voice down the phone, he felt thrown into doubt. Travis had felt resigned to his fate. He'd intended to put her on the next flight out of Douala, but she had been looking forward to this trip for such a long time. He cursed under his breath, and in a friendlier tone, told his daughter to be very careful and take care and remember Dad loved her very much. She said she would be okay and wanted Travis to trust her. She was so convincing. How could he help her, but keep his fears in check? I slowly got out of bed, deciding Jason would never show up. It was only then I realized I was hungry. So I tiptoed into the kitchen, snatched a cold beef sandwich from the fridge, and ate it with some milk. I walked into the bathroom and took a cold shower. As I opened the bathroom door, the lights suddenly went out. I wondered to myself if AES-SONEL, the power company, was at it again. I stepped into the hall, groping for the light switch. I heard a key turn in the door lock, and I turned around screaming and ran back into the bathroom. I felt a hand clasp hard on my mouth. I was terrified when I felt another hand lift me off my feet. Then I knew it was him, just from his smell. "Jason, is that you?" The lights came on, and he smiled mischievously at me. "Are you trying to kill me?" I asked angrily, then noticed he was naked. "Oh no, not again, Jason," I said, trying to loosen his grip. He bent down and kissed me, and even though I felt my legs melting, I kept on pushing hard, trying to get out. "Come on, Beria," he implored. At the sound of his voice, I knew I was never going to be saved from this handsome god of love. Though I said, "Not again, Jason, not again. You know the damage we have already done." I knew the die had been cast. As he nudged and pulled, scratched and yelled, I felt him fill me once again, and in my subconscious, I knew I had fallen yet again to temptation. I knew it would be a lie if I said at that moment there was regret at what I had done. I knew I wanted him so badly. It didn't matter if he was my stepfather. He was just a man, capable of driving a woman mad with an unyielding desire. That was Jason. The end. You just listened to An Unyielding Desire, written by Robert Fay, read to you by Evan Schmidt. Production copyright 2022 by Robert Fay. Copyright Robert Fay.